Hi, welcome everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order now. It is 6:30 p.m. on April 24, 2023. And this is a public meeting of the City of Portland Police Accountability Commission. My name is Victoria, and I will be one of your facilitators today with IOMIRE. Thank you. If the Spanish language interpreters, Lisette or Sasha, can please give the information on the Spanish language interpretation, please.
Sure. Esta junta es una junta pública sujeta a las leyes estatales de Oregon y las reglas administrativas de la ciudad de Portland y será grabada. Habrá interpretación disponible al español. Para poder escuchar en español, favor de oprimir el icono del globo al fondo de su pantalla, luego interpretación y seleccione español. Continuará viendo la junta en pantalla, pero escuchará al intérprete. Por favor, denos un minuto en lo que se habilita la función. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Sasha. The city also offers ASL interpretation, which is being provided by Dennis and Christine. Please pin their video feed to see their interpretation throughout the meeting. The closed captioning is turned on in Zoom as another means of assistance. But please note that this is an automatic captioning services and is not always accurate. The city supports access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and can provide other language support as well. Please email in advance of future public meetings, either as a response to a public meeting notice or directly to policeaccountability@portlandoregon.gov to ask for other access assistance, including interpretation into other languages. This meeting is a public meeting subject to City of Portland Administrative Code and Oregon State law and is being recorded. For this meeting, the chat function is enabled for commission members to communicate with each other. Members of the public will be able to ask questions using Zoom Q&A feature. As the commissioners are presenting and or discussing things, if attendees have questions, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A. We hope to use this feature to help guide our conversation during the meeting and future meetings agenda topics. We'd like to be clear that not all questions will be answered during the meeting, but if answered, both the question and answer will be visible to you and will become part of the meeting record. To access this feature, just click on the Q&A icon in the middle of your screen. And now I will pass it to the co-chairs, one of the co-chairs, to do the land acknowledgements. Is any of the co-chairs would like to do it, or you want any of the co-chairs, or I can also read it, or are you read it?
If you would be willing to read it tonight, Victoria, I'd appreciate that.
Will. Yes, of course. Okay. We acknowledge that the rivers, lakes, streams, and lands of the lower Willamette River rest upon the occupied territories of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes. We recognize that many villages, traditions, cultures, and relationships that existed along the river since time immemorial. We recognize these tribes stewarded these lands and rivers since time immemorial for future generations. We recognize and undertake responsibility for the destruction of the river and land, of traditional food sources, sacred places, and multifaceted ways of life. We acknowledge the economic and social values that enable the harm to the river, including systematic racism, classism, and other systems of oppression that perpetuated harm against Black, Indigenous, and immigrant communities along the river. With this acknowledgement, we commit to honoring and learning from the past and working towards a more equitable and sustainable future for the lower Willamette River. We commit to seeking solutions that acknowledge the inequities of past socioeconomic policies and the harm done to people and our relationships to these lands and waters. Thank you. Now we're gonna pass to the community agreements. And we're gonna give time for each commissioner to read through these 3 pages and review the agreements. If you notice that a conversation is coming close to violating a community agreement, please call your fellow commissioner members in gently and with compassion. If you are called in, please take a moment to consider how you can best participate in this space while still respecting the community agreements and making a space for everyone. Do we all commit to following the community agreements for today's meeting and to gently calling in our colleagues and collaborators if needed? Please give me your thumbs up or your hands. Thank you very much. Now I will pass it over to the co-chair to discuss the timeline. And also, if you need help, let us know. Please.
Certainly. Can we go to the next slide? So as everyone knows, we are in the structures and details phase currently. That is the 4th phase of the work that we have been doing. We have 3 subcommittees: board membership, oversight staff, and reporting and transparency. Reporting and transparency has already reported back to the full committee and had their document approved. And board membership and oversight staff both recently finished in this and coming full committee meetings. We will be wrapping up this phase in May and moving on to our additional phases to talk about the transition and the implementation of our proposals and to present to the City Council. I got ahead of myself on that last slide. Oh no, please keep going. I've already covered most of that. So we are currently in mid to late April and working on approving definitions and areas of agreement on all 3 of our subcommittees. At this point, as planned, all 3 of our subcommittees have finished their work, and all we have left to do is discuss and approve the definitions and areas of agreement. Next slide, please. I think that covers everything about where we are. So yeah, I think we are ready to go on with the meeting.
Thank you. Now we're gonna go to the first thing in the meeting. We're gonna go to the definitions. We're gonna move to discussing the draft definitions. And I will pass it. We ask you to follow our normal discussion rules. Please be brief each time you speak, even though you can speak multiple times. Please be facilitated and remember that we use a weighted stack in our discussion. Finally, please be forward-looking in your comments. Would you, any of the co-chairs start and discussing and explaining the definitions part, please?
Can we, the definition of accountability is not visible on the screen. Can we get that pulled up? All right, so we're starting with the definition of accountability, which is one of two definitions that we're going to be discussing today. My co-chair and I have sort of tried to synthesize some of the work that's been done, both in discussions of commissioners and by the staff, into a definition that we hope will be helpful both to communicate to the community the purpose of this group, and then to also give the group the guidance that it needs in doing its work. So we have our short definition. Accountability is a system of checks and balances aimed at ensuring that police carry out their duties properly and are held responsible through a fair and transparent process if they fail to do so. And then we wanted to go into a bit more detail about sort of when accountability has been accomplished. Accountability for a harm done to an individual and or community occurs when the harm that has been done is accurately described and appropriately recognized. The person or entity that caused the harm takes whatever steps are possible to heal the harm, and the person or entity that has caused the harm takes whatever steps are possible to prevent the harm from reoccurring in the future. So it's sort of three things that need to be accomplished in order for accountability to be achieved. Ideally, the work of accountability is performed willingly by the person that has caused the harm in conjunction with the oversight system. When a person who is alleged to have caused the harm denies responsibility, accountability requires the oversight system to investigate, fairly determine the facts at hearing, and based upon the record, impose accountability that serves the purposes of justice and healing for the victim and the community while fully protecting the rights of all participants. The ultimate goals of accountability are ensuring the future safety and healing of the victim and the community by repairing the harm that has been caused and both directly and indirectly deterring future harm from being caused, building and maintaining trust between the community and the police, and educating and correcting the behavior of officers to ensure that Portland has a fair, just, and professional police force. And those were put in that order for a reason. So I'm happy to take any feedback of whether any of those should be further up or further down. The ultimate goal of accountability is not punishment or retribution, while sanctions up to and including termination may be appropriate to ensure the safety of the community and the sanctity of the relationship between the police bureau and the community. The purpose of these sanctions should never be to do more harm in exchange for harm that has been done. Accountability requires a fair, independent, and impartial oversight system that all parties trust. So having sort of gone over that, I would like to open it up for discussion. Whether people have any thoughts about this definition, whether it covers what we want it to, whether there are things that need to be added or removed, please raise your hands and jump on in.
Thank you, Co-Chair Casey. And I'm going to remind everyone for a start of discussions, the same rules we read at the beginning is about
here. Try this one instead.
Commissioner Sherry, your microphone is on, but I will pass to the discussions and just the rules on the discussions. Remember everyone to be brief because we have a couple documents. Anyone can speak multiple times, but should take no more than 2 minutes each time they speak. Our second facilitator will help everyone stick to this time so more people have an opportunity to speak. Thank you, Ayomide. Please be facilitated, raise hands on Zoom and allow the facilitator to call on people in a way that promotes conversation keeps things moving and allows everyone to speak. Please, remember the facilitators use a weighted stack and will not always call on the first person to raise their hand. And please be proactive and give good information to the discussion we're having. Thank you. We will start now reviewing and making comments and questions in this document. And I will pass it, Commissioner Dan.
Oh, hi, Dan Handelman. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a member of the commission. This is the first time I'm seeing this document. I submitted some suggestions several months ago, it feels like, that included a lot of language that's not included here at all. And I understand, if I heard you right, Co-Chair Lewis, that you and Co-Chair McDowell worked on synthesizing ideas, but I'm not really seeing the ideas in here that I brought forward. So, so I had listed, among other things, accountability should include reimbursing victims of police misconduct financially through civil lawsuits, ensuring officers who are fired for misconduct cannot work in law enforcement again, and changing laws or legal decisions such as qualified immunity, which make holding officers to account difficult or impossible. I don't see that really reflected in this language, for instance.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is that Co-Chair Casey or staff would like to answer Commissioner comment? Okay.
Certainly. So I feel like we definitely tried to leave a certain amount of room in this definition for the board itself to get more specific as to what they want to advocate for when this is sort of implemented by the people who are going to be doing this work. That being said, I think it is totally valid to discuss adding in those specific sort of enunciations of what accountability can look like in these cases. So I certainly, if there's language to be added, to be proposed, I think that's completely appropriate.
Thank you, Co-Chair Casey. And yes, please, if you have any commissioner, any discussion, questions, or additions to what the text we have here, please provide that information. That way I can add it on the comments. Commissioner Jay?
Yeah, there was a comment about one of the further down, something about the goals, one of the goals being trust in maintaining trust between the community and the police. And I don't necessarily see that as a goal of accountability. I see it more as maintaining the people's trust in the system, because as it is right now, like, I think a lot of people understand the system as, the police being able to do whatever they want and kind of not being held to the law, while certain populations are being, over exploited and over policed and that sort of thing. So it's not that, the community needs to trust the police more, it's that the community needs the trust that when the police, do something harmful, which they have in the past and will in the future, that the system will hold them to account in the same way that communities of color are held, to account for, yeah, that's, I don't know what a good, I don't have a suggestion for like a good wording. Nothing's like coming to mind that sounds good in my head right now, but I might think of something and throw it in the chat or something. I'll mull on it.
Thank you, Commissioner. And because of this is so important on the definitions and define what this is the purpose of the intentions, I'm gonna call on everyone. That way we can have your opinions or your comments and everyone about these definitions. I noticed, yeah, staff.
Thank you. Yeah. So just for reference for everyone, the scope of work of the commission assigned by the city council, and this is in a footnote, but it's not visible on the screen all the time. So just wanted to make sure we highlight it. This is from Council Resolution 37548. Says to provide a working definition of accountability that includes the relationship between communities and the police. So just as a reference, that is essentially the task before you in this moment, and how you interpret that, of course, and how you define it is up to you. And I'll pass it back to Facilitator Victoria.
Thank you, staff. And I know Commissioner Ajay already put something on the chat. And also, I'm gonna call Commissioner Sima, because I know you had your hand raised because you were at the public instead of panelists, but I also wanted to see you wanna make any comment about these definitions or any goal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% behind Commissioner Ajay, and and I understand what Samir is saying as well. I know one of the original goals, and I think that without having to utilize phrases such as, like, you know, building trust between community and police, which is often times I'd say 9 out of 10 times something that's more of a PR reference than anything, is being able to probably be more specific with our context in this. And the idea is that we want to be able to have a more just, transparent, and equitable accounting system for the community. So maybe addressing something like that instead, such as like building and maintaining just, transparent, and equitable you know, system for the community, an accountability process for the community. Something along those lines.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really not very big on seeing trust between the community and the police. It's just, it's so politicized, it's almost empty.
Thank you. And I know the staff is taking notes on the document. I also acknowledge that Commissioner Dan put on the chat his suggestion for this document as well. And now I will pass it. Is there any questions, additional? Commissioner Tirsa, do you have a comment?
Hello, so I'm rereading the whole complete portion, and going back to the what Commissioner Jay pointed out about building and maintaining trust between the community and police. And I see that in this section, there's only one, the word transparent is only used once. And to me, accountability, a big part of like police accountability is transparency. So I'm wondering if we can include the word transparency as also one of the goals of accountability. But I also don't want it to sound like it's being repeated, because it's like included in the sentence in the short definition.
Thank you, Commissioner Tirsa. Commissioner Monica?
I am wondering if I think what's missing in this definition or this goal for me is that I am hoping that accountability in Portland is going to mean that an overly protected and a group that most always has gotten away with things that they shouldn't be getting away with. Now in Portland, they will not. And so that we're hopefully leveling out the playing field within the city of Portland, at least, because there's going to be so many other protections out there that, at least in the city of Portland, hopefully with the system that we create, we're leveling out a playing field so that there is less power within the system of policing. And hopefully it sticks to the point where those, when somebody needs to be fired, like Dan was saying, they should not be able to go work somewhere else. But you know, that's not part of our jurisdiction, I guess, because we're just in Portland. We're just, but those are my thoughts. I kind of want to say that this is not just about you know, accountability should be more than just fixing a wrong slightly or fixing or just investigation, but actually doing something to level out the playing field that has been so uneven.
Thank you. And do you have any specific suggestions, or you want to put something in the chat, or just the comment about making?
I don't know where this should go. I can think about it a little bit more and put some more ideas in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
It's the first time I read it too, so it's kind of, you know, hard to get it there.
Yes, I understand. Thank you. Commissioner Ajay?
Yeah, so this question about how the police should interact with the community is a question that I think can be answered by thinking about how they interact with the community now. And so, like, I feel like there should be some language around, like, the police should interact with the public in a transparent and respectful manner, with cultural humility, with a, you know, in a trauma-informed way, in a, what's the word, like, diffusing, you know, sort of like diffusing aggressive, you know what I mean, like that kind of I forgot the word that I'm looking for, but I think y'all know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so maybe if we want to talk about how the police and the community should interact, instead of talking de-escalate, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you, Faith. So if we want to talk about how the police should be interacting with the public, instead of saying build trust, we should maybe say some of the actions that are required to build trust, because, you know, I think that there's a common understanding that they're not doing these things very willfully, and that and so I feel like if we're going to address how the community interacts with police, let's like be specific, like let's, you know, provide specific instructions on like what that looks like in terms of accountability. Yeah, service to the community, like there's a lot of ways that they can interact. I think that should be made sort of explicit if we're talking about accountability to the community.
Thank you, Commissioner Ajay. And I know Commissioner Angie and Commissioner Sophia, they put some comments in the chat. I don't know if they would like to say more about it. Please raise your hand. Commissioner Sophia, would you like to say more, or just what you put in the chat?
I can say that oh, sorry. You go ahead, Sophia.
I was just going to say, I just wanted to kind of, I'm just listening to everyone's comments, and I just like to say, you know, we want the police to be in servitude and serve with humility. Not as, I think part of the issue is that they feel that the position that has been created in the police system is that they feel, I'd try to find the right word. They feel that they are in charge of everyone, and they're here to serve everyone, not to and be empowered over people. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Commissioner Angie?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I always go back to that, you know, the police are supposed to serve and protect the community. And so I don't know how to put that in here, but I mean, I want our community to feel protected by the police. Obviously, many communities are not feeling that way right now, but I don't know how to put that to include that in here. So that's what I would, when Sophia brought up servitude, I thought, you know, the serve and protect piece of it and how we get back to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Angie and Commissioner Sophia. Serve humble and with humility. Commissioner Faith, would you like to add to the conversation or make a comment?
I don't have anything right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lovisa?
Sure, I appreciate very much all the work that's been done on this document and all the ideas and suggestions. I appreciate this conversation that we're having around the Exhibit A requirement for the work we're supposed to be doing. I do want to recognize that it's so easy for us. I remember we had kind of this issue in one of our discussions with the public about their definition of accountability, and it's sort of like the question of what is accountability, what is the definition, is it's such a massive question, and there's a lot of really nuanced conversation to have there, especially when we're talking about accountability and we're talking about the provide a working definition of accountability that includes the relationship between communities and the police. But there's also kind of a scope issue here, and maybe a little bit of a scope creep issue that happens. I think when we start to have this discussion about what is the goal of making this definition, and also what are we able to impact, and sort of just trying to keep it focused as we can on the scope of what we're able to do, because I don't think we're not able necessarily to dictate how cops do their jobs. We could certainly maybe make some comments in a general sense, but that said, if we have specifics in terms of accountability and in terms of discipline, that does change the interaction between a member of the public and a member of PPB. So I guess the thoughts that I had were, we can't necessarily really do that much to change the public's relationship specifically between the public and the police, but we can hopefully change very significantly the relationship between the public and the police accountability system. So maybe where we say rebuilding the community's faith in the system, just really clarifying that we mean the police accountability system there, because that's what we have some power to impact right now. And then I also wanted to quickly say that I really like Commissioner Handelman's specifics about what does accountability mean in this really, really specific context of sort of after the fact, there is an incident and then what happens after that incident. And I'll wrap this up. And I think it's really worthwhile to enumerate really specifically what are some things that would be really meaningful forms of accountability. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lovisa. And yeah, thank you. Great ideas. Thank you. Commissioner Faith?
Yeah, thanks, Lovisa. That was helpful feedback. And I think somewhere that I'm struggling with a little too is I think this is a little bit of scope creep, like an accountable system. There's a difference between our opinions on policing as a culture and as a system versus the accountability system. And while I would while I don't know that there is ever going to be a trust, I know there will never be a trusting relationship between police and the community. I don't think that falls into our definition of accountability when we're talking about the work of the commission. The work of the commission is a narrow scope of police accountability when there's misconduct. So I think I would hate for our accountability system to be judged based on the community trust towards the police. And I think if we speak too much about what we'd like to see police do, then our accountability system will be judged based on police perception rather than the effectiveness of our accountability system. So I guess my invitation is to make this specific and refined to the accountability system and not how we would like to see policing transformed or abolished.
Thank you, Commissioner Faith, and thank you for reminding us to be focused on what the police accountability is, mission it is. Thank you. And Commissioner Dan?
Hi, thanks. I know you haven't gotten through everybody yet, but I just want to come back to, there was another thing I found in the draft that I wrote, which I discovered I wrote in January, that has to do with fixing the policies, which I think is part of the accountability. So it says policies which allow for inequitable policing and actions which shock the conscience, even if they are lawful and justifiable by the book, should be examined and changed to ensure true community safety. I think that we're not talking about holding individual officers accountable. We're talking about changing the rules so that if what they're doing is lawful now, it's not lawful anymore in the later. I mean, I don't mean lawful for all the lawyers in this room. I mean, if it's against policy, if it's within policy now, it shouldn't be within policy. So I think I want to keep that idea in there. I'm also concerned that there's several instances of the use of the word accountability in our definition of the word accountability. That's kind of, like an Ouroboros that's eating its own tail. So I'm hoping that we can maybe figure out other words to use, like for, oversight system instead of accountability system. And the one that's really sticking out at me is where it says impose accountability. And I think that bothers me, not only because of the use of the word to define itself, but I don't think we mean we're imposing accountability. We're imposing, not we, the new board is imposing something else. I mean, they're going to impose discipline or corrective action. Okay, that's my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Staff?
Yeah, hi. So this is with relation to something that Commissioner Faith talked about. There's a conversation around the values and goals that was very similar when those were approved in March of 2022 around to what degree it makes sense to establish a criteria that has to do with two parties outside of both the PAC and the Oversight Board and their relationship with each other, which maybe was mirrored in the success criteria, and whether or not to evaluate the success of the oversight system and of the PAC's work based off of whether communities trust the police. This is a conversation that may be helpful to refer back to from a little over a year ago now. And to some degree that is reflected in the values and goals, which we're going to be reviewing this later on before any decision to approve the definitions. So it may be helpful to do that at this point, just to kind of see where all of you landed 13 months ago. So just I don't know if that's something that's helpful to do. I have it open if anyone wants to take a look now or do it later, whichever you prefer. Also, just to clarify, the task from the council was relationship, not anything to do with interactions necessarily, though that could be included in it, or with relation to with relation to trust. Both of those are related ideas, certainly, but the actual scope of the work of the commission is to define the relationship between communities and police in the context of accountability. To whatever degree you interpret that is, of course, the commission's decision. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. We still haven't heard from Commissioner Cherry and Commissioner Obi.
Sure. I can just speak. I mean, I think people have had great comments so far. I think in the background there is, the more we get outside of the scope of the actual PAC or of like what we want to define as police accountability, I think it puts a bit of more of a target on like any sort of final document that we put out. I think Commissioner Seamob said there's kind of a political nature to some of these things that needs to be reconciled. So not that I disagree with any point that's been made so far. I just think that focusing on what the mandate is as best as possible might make it more easily acceptable by all, per se, even if it's not how people generally feel or what's necessarily right morally, ethically. It's like when, as we say, more things that are have a bit more strong commentary or force behind them, it might run to argument later on for like kind of political sake. But thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Obi. Staff?
Oh, sorry. Accidental hand raise.
Okay, sorry, Commissioner Cherry.
I was reflecting as everybody was speaking, and I just feel like we have such an amazing group of people here. There's so much rich history with people and experiences with the police. And I specifically want to refer back to Commissioner Dan's words about not putting in, defining the definition of accountability by using the word accountability. And I liked the wording that he wanted to add in. I hear what people are saying about, and especially I hearken back to what Obi just said, Commissioner Obi, about we have an end goal here and we don't want it to be thwarted by trying to overstep our bounds, I guess, what our scope is. However, if I feel that if we don't put these things in here in a firm language, we're dealing with a system, we're dealing with a broken relationship, we're dealing with a mentality. Lots of disclosure here. I had a personal situation with the police where they literally watched my light go out at a very young age. Zero concern whatsoever. I was nothing to them. And that is what we're dealing with. Let's not forget that here. We need firm language. We need firm language. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you so much for recognizing me, Victoria.
Thank you, Commissioner Cherry. Commissioner Cameron?
Hi. I don't know if I have anything to add, but I do appreciate everyone's input here. I really like what Commissioner Dan was putting out. I also understand where Commissioner Obi was, wanted to make sure that we're not making, I don't know, such a hard line in the sand. So yeah, I'm still absorbing and going through everything. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Cameron. And before I pass it to Co-Chair Casey, Commissioner Connie, is she still here? Oh, yeah, Commissioner Connie, would you like to participate or make a comment?
I'm here and I would just be echoing more of what's being said. So I'm just in support and agreement of not overstepping, not being overly egregious in trying to place definition and but trying to create a container that points in the direction that we're wanting to see the relationship sort of go. So yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Connie. And I know you are back. Commissioner Christian, do you have a comment about the definition and the goals of accountability?
Hi, yeah, sorry, my call dropped for a bit. I think I was listening, though I was just in the lobby. I agree with Commissioner Connie. I'd just be echoing what has been said already. There's a lot of really good information there. I'll throw in extra support for some of Dan's specifics. I thought that was really good, and Ajay's comment on the relationship between the broken relationship between the police and the community. And I think leaning too much into that might maybe not create distrust, but like focus too much on that relationship as opposed to the task at hand for the Accountability Commission or the Oversight Board. And I think one other thing that popped into my head, which I'm not sure exactly, I've been trying to figure out how to phrase it. I don't know exactly how it would apply to the definition necessarily, but it's something that I don't think has been said yet. So I'll throw it in as well. I think for me, definitions, an important part of having a definition is to have it be able to change as needed, as the needs of the community change. I don't know how to put that in there. And I also worry about putting that in there because I wouldn't want it to be manipulated. Like I wouldn't want that clause or that bit to be manipulated in another way, because the minute you're like, this definition can change depending on the needs of the community, another, interested party could perhaps use that as a way to be like, well, you said it can change, so this is how it needs to change now. And it's for like maybe a magically opposed idea or something like that. But that's the only other thing that came to mind for me, was that if a need arises that our definition doesn't cover, it might be good to have some kind of clause in there for that. Again, I'm torn on that as well. Oh, and the other thing too is that I feel very torn between the conversation around staying within the scope of our work and also using really firm language, because I can see both sides of the coin on that one. So that one's really tough. I do feel like I lean a little more towards using firmer language. Yeah, I'll stop there. Yeah, just reiterating what everyone said. My 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Christian. And your point is very valid and important to bring up something that adapt to the needs of the community. Thank you for participating. I know Commissioner Tim is here, but I will pass it to Co-Chair Casey and then Commissioner Angie and then Commissioner Tim. Go ahead, Co-Chair Casey.
So first of all, I really appreciate all of this input, and I really think this is a fantastic discussion. Just from a process standpoint, I would really encourage people as we add things to this document to be thinking of what would we replace, because I am not wedded to any of the existing language, but I do think that it's important that this document is accessible and concise. I think we want to be able to explain to our community and to the new commission in a relatively brief and clear way what our definition of accountability is. And I worry that if we just add things without taking anything away, this is going to become unwieldy. And I do think that there are a lot of sort of ideas and values that are good, but that we have plenty of other places that we can express them, not necessarily in this definition, but in the various other documents and systems and such that we are working on.
Thank you, Co-Chair Casey. And I will pass it to Commissioner Angie.
Thank you, Victoria. Kind of piggybacking on Co-Chair Casey's statement, I personally would like to really quickly review our success criteria and our values statement, because I feel like we spent a lot of time going through that. as a commission and trying to figure out how we were going to judge what we put together. And so that helps me clarify when we're going through these conversations, how this is applying to what our goals are and how we're going to be successful with those goals. So thank you very much. And kind of maybe think about, restate the question of what we're trying to do tonight, and then looking at this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Angie, and that's a great idea. Staff already put it here in front of us, and staff?
Yeah, thank you. And I think Commissioner Angie said something I was trying to say earlier in much clearer ways, which is that this document, the values and goals, is the benchmark for assessment, more so than the definition document is designed to be. The definition document is designed to be a working definition that helps concisely explain sort of how what the commission views as accountability from a conceptual level. So that might be a helpful distinction between the two documents. And certainly this document can be updated at any point as well if there are things that the commission finds are missing in it. This is your document and success criteria for yourself. So yeah. So I'll scroll through, noting that harm reduction number 3 here is not, you're not seeing all of it just yet. The way the PDF shows is a little bit awkward there. And the thing that we would be asking, prior to making a determination as to whether or not to approve a document, the members of the commission have agreed in March of last year to look at this document and determine if this rightmost column is being served by all the documents that you are approving. Is the subcommittee on, or sorry, the areas of agreement on board membership, does it do the things that are relevant to its topical area that are in this rightmost column? Same thing for oversight staff for reporting and transparency. And I'll scroll through to the next page here.
Yes, Commissioner Angie?
I wanted to address Commissioner Christian's information or statement. Could you scroll back down, please, just a little bit, right there to community centered? I know that we're trying to figure out some language that allows for, I mean, continual effectiveness was one of our main points, right? And trying to have this piece of the document be continually effective, we wanted to leave some sort of leeway in there that says we can update this for the future because things might change, but we don't want to make that too open-ended. Obviously, we don't want to create a situation that might have somebody that is up to nefarious reasons changing it. But I really like point 1 in community center, where it says a system which is created and evolves with the input of community and which empowers communities. And I don't know how to link those two together, but I really feel like we can. So I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Angie. Commissioner Dan?
So I'm a little confused because, you know, we're being asked to make this definition for the new board, but we're also projecting it from the values of this commission, yeah? And what we think that the community was asking when they voted for the ballot measure. So I'm trying to picture where this definition would go in the new, in the documents that create the new board, whether it's going to be part of the city code or not. So that's just one of the things I'm thinking about. And then also in the draft that I sent a few months ago, I took the dictionary definition from Merriam-Webster and put it the first half of the sentence, which is an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility to account for one's actions and to answer for them. That's a dictionary definition of accountability, and we didn't really talk about, you know, in the existing definition that we have, officers taking responsibility for their own actions. I mean, it says ideally that they would do that themselves, but I think that even once they're found to have committed misconduct, we hope that they would also take responsibility. And then I add the second half of the sentence that says when damaging / disruptive to other individuals or the community at large. And to me, that speaks to this question about the relationship between the police and the community, that the actions that are misconduct have, you know, create harm and damage and disrupt people's lives and community, you know, the community at large. So I don't know if that's something we can add to the short definition or compare to the short definition we already have, but I kind of like stealing Merriam-Webster. I don't know if there's a legal thing about that, and then adding those extra words at the end.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Staff?
Just to answer the question about if this would go into code or not, that's up to you. It's not mandatory that this go into code. It would definitely be part of the commission's presentation to the city council because it was something that the city council requested, but it doesn't necessarily have to be written into code. That's something that the determination of what actually ends up in code is part of the 6th phase of work. So just clarifying that question there. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Okay. The only Commissioner Ajay.
Yeah, just like looking at the values that we just looked at, and one of them, I mean, there was a whole section about being community centered, and there was something in particular that was like centering the concerns of the community. And I don't know, I mean, just looking at this definition, like, I mean, is this what incorporated, you know, from our sessions, like with the community? Like, have we taken that information and actually incorporated it into our work? Because that's one of our explicit values. And so if we haven't done that, then can we say that we've really checked off that value? And when I think about like accountability, I think that there was specific things that a lot of members of the community said, or you know, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I believe like qualified immunity came up. But you know, general feelings of lack of police accountability in the past was something that came up constantly, and yeah, it seems disingenuous to say that we're having these values of being community centered, but not incorporating those ideas, those community ideas into our definitions.
Thank you, Commissioner Ajay. Staff? Oh, but I'm sorry. I always confuse because the color black. Commissioner Cherry?
Yes, I really liked what Commissioner Jay just had to say, and I want us to, at my attendance with the public, each time I've attended the public, my camera's not on. Each time that I've attended the public, they come with such strong emotion and strong feelings about what they want and in this accountability. And it has been, you know, not a long time for me to be on the commission, But harkening back to also what the vote was for 26-17, over 82%. Wow. So with that, I really want us to remember how strongly the public wanted accountability. And what I'm trying to say is that at the end result of this, I want satisfaction. I want the public, my hope would be that the public would say, right on, guys, A+. This is what we are so happy to see now. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going, okay, Commissioner Angie, and then I'm gonna ask Commissioner Tim, and then we're gonna take a break.
I'm sorry, mine's just really quick. The values and success criteria is a system to the success criteria is not to judge what we're doing now. So incorporating community input taken from this, it would be incorporating community input in the system that we're creating. It's supposed to be judged on the system that we're creating, and I'm not sure if I'm saying that coherently because I'm really tired tonight, and I'm sorry about that. But it's not the system isn't what we're doing right now. It's what we're creating. Just an FYI.
Thank you. Commissioner Tim, would you like to make a comment, or you have a suggestion for the accountability definition or accountability goals?
No, thank you for the opportunity. I enjoyed the conversation, and I appreciate all the different viewpoints, and think that it's definitely smart to try to, as Commissioner Sherry said, respect the passion of the public and to also respect the will of the voters and create something that is in alignment with what 82% of the people wanted. So I appreciate the conversation and don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. It's 7:40. We're gonna take a 6 minutes break. We're gonna come back at 7:46 and continue with the conversation. Thank you. Continue. We're gonna move on to the next definition. Is there anything else that you want to add? Now, let's move on to the definition of independent judgment. And Co-Chair Casey, would you like to read, or do you need help reading this part of the document?
No, I'm very happy to go through it.
Thank you.
So this is the other term that we were specifically asked to define by City Council. And again, we've tried to do sort of a bite-sized version and then go into a bit more detail. So the short definition is a demonstrable absence of real or perceived influence from law enforcement, political actors, and other special interests looking to affect the operations of the civilian oversight agency. When is there independent judgment? The Oversight Board will have independent judgment if it can make internal policy changes, as well as discipline decisions and policy recommendations for PPB, apart from the influence of any person or entity within or without the City of Portland. This means that the board shall not be influenced in its decision-making except in an advisory capacity by any other official or entity, including the Police Bureau, the City Attorney's Office, the Risk Management Division, the Bureau of Human Resources, and the Portland Police Association. The non-interference clause means that when the board makes a decision under the authority of the charter, other city officials and entities shall enact the will of the board and refrain from any attempt to thwart the board's decision. Goals of independent judgment: to enact the will of the voters who approved Charter Section 2-1006. The board shall have the authority to exercise independent judgment in performing all legally assigned powers and duties. The mayor, city council, and administrative agencies shall not interfere in the exercise of the board's independent judgment. In order to maintain legitimacy, an agency must be able to demonstrate the extent and impact of its independence from the overseen law enforcement agency, especially in the face of high-profile issues or incidents.
Thank you, Co-Chair Casey. Is there any comments or notes that you wanna mention after reading the document? Okay, I will then pass it to, I will pass it to staff first and then to Commissioner Dunn. Staff?
Thank you. Yeah, just wanted to reiterate something that Co-Chair Casey mentioned in the last one, which is in terms of length, this one is something that fits onto a page, which is, I think, a pretty good benchmark for the whole thing. And definitely just ask that if there are proposed text changes to be a little bit zero sum in terms of length from that perspective. Also, just while we're on the subject, there is the definition mandate from the City Council in Resolution 37548 is what constitutes independent judgment. There's not any additional caveats on this one or details like there was on the other one. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Commissioner Dunn?
Hi, thank you. So I checked back to the draft that I wrote for this, and almost all the concepts are actually included in this version. So I thank the co-chairs for doing that. I did find, however, there are a couple of sentences that are not in there or reflected in there, and I just pasted them in the chat. But what I had written is, because the board will be hiring the director, who in turn will hire other staff, this non-interference includes the staff of the board itself. I think that's an important thing to consider, that we don't want the staff telling the board what decisions to make. Conversely, I wrote, the non-interference clause means that when the board makes a decision under the authority of the charter, these other bodies, and that's referring to the mayor, city council, auditor, and all those other, the police bureau, city attorney's office, risk management, they can't tell the city council what to do, but when they make a decision under the authority of the chart, the other bodies will enact the will of the board. So I thought those two phrases were pretty important. Oh, I see that there. Okay, thank you. Well, then I guess the only sentence that's missing is the one about the staff of the board itself.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Dunn. Are there any additional comments, questions, or suggestions about the test? No? Okay. I don't know if we need to move on in the conversation, or do you have any other comments about the definition of independent judgment? Or should I need to ask everyone about their comments? Okay, let's go and ask everyone, just to make sure this is approved or we need to make changes. Okay. Who would like to start? Commissioner Ajay, would you like to add or comment about this?
It's an appropriate definition. I don't really have anything to add. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sophia?
I'm still thinking about this because I'm just now seeing it. My initial thoughts. I don't know if it's necessary. That's kind of where I'm going. I'm just trying to scroll through and see what it is that why would we need that, and isn't it implicit that the board makes all the decisions? So I don't know. I'm just still thinking about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. And I see that Commissioner Debbie is now here. Commissioner Debbie, would you like to comment about the goals, independent judgment, or the definition?
Sorry, I just got home from a long road trip and I'm just listening right now.
Okay, thank you,
If that's,
Commissioner.
if that's okay, thanks.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Commissioner Debbie. Commissioner Sima?
I'm good so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lovisa?
Thanks. Hold on one second.
Sure.
Sorry. I appreciate this language. I do like this language. I just was talking to someone over the weekend and they were asking, you know, sort of what is the meaningful change? What are some of the meaningful changes in between this police accountability system and another one? And I think non-interference is such a critical one. I appreciate Commissioner Handelman's specificity about this extending to the staff of the board itself. But in general, I'm in favor of this language, and I don't have major changes to it.
Thank you, Commissioner Lovisa. Commissioner Monica?
I don't really have a lot of feedback. I think it looks great. I think it is important to make sure that independent judgment is specifically described in this situation the way it is. But no, I think it looks good.
Thank you, Commissioner Monica. Commissioner Angie? Maybe I will pass to Commissioner Angie later. Commissioner Fate?
I don't have anything additional.
Okay, Commissioner Lovisa?
Yeah, I was just, I'm looking at, sorry, could you scroll up just a tiny bit? Under when is there independent judgment? The oversight board will have independent judgment. Does that say if it can make internal policy changes? And I guess I just a small, maybe grammatical change there. I'm not sure exactly what what it would be. When, or maybe in order to make internal policy changes, or just two, maybe just two. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Lovisa. Commissioner Obi?
Yeah, I don't have much to say. I think that independent judgment is kind of key to improving the relationship of the community with police oversight in Portland. But no, I think what's written down here is quite good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Commissioner Tirsa?
I like how this sounds and how it reads. I don't have any proposed edits to it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cherry?
I really like how it reads, and I like Lovisa's change. I was looking at that too, and I like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cameron?
I don't have anything to add. It looks good to me.
Thank you. Commissioner Connie?
No changes at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know Commissioner Casey, I asked you at the beginning, but do you have any comment after the suggestions?
Nothing to add now.
Thank you. Commissioner Tim?
My only comment was just regarding, and I was trying to read the comment on the side from Commissioner Dan from a previous meeting, but I do just wonder why it says under the authority of the charter, because the non-interference, if we're trusting the board that they're appointed to enact the, yeah, it makes me wonder why we qualify it. Because to me, I wonder if non-interference wouldn't mean that when the board makes a decision, other city officials shall refrain from any attempt to thwart the decision.
Thank you. And I forgot, Commissioner Faith, would you like to add something? No? I know Commissioner Christian was here, but I don't see it. Okay, and
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Okay, I'm sorry. Go
Yeah, I'm
ahead.
here.
I see you. I see you.
No, no worries. All good. No, I'm good. I also had some suggestions from January, but I felt like they were all reflected in this. From what I could remember, it was kind of a long time ago, but the vibes were good. So we'll say it's good. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Christian. And I asked already Commissioner Tirsa, but there is anybody else that I'm missing, and I tried to go with the order in my computer, and then people move. Okay, I think we have most of the comments here for this goals on independent judgment, and we should take a decision on the suggestion that's here that Commissioner Lovisa did. And I'm gonna ask the question, is there a strong opposition to changing from what it was, that if it can, to the proposed change? Is there a general agreement to changing from what it was to the proposed change using two? Thank you. Thank you. Then can we move on? Okay. Do we need to go back to the definition accountability? Oh, Commissioner Dan?
So I also made a proposal to insert the sentence. That
Oh,
says
I'm
because-
sorry. You're right. You're right. I'm sorry. Then I need to ask, is there a strong opposition to?
Could you hold on? Sorry, could you just hold on a second so it can be visually displayed?
Sure, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm sorry if that was already added. Is there a strong opposition to adding this sentence that Commissioner Dan suggested to this paragraph? And Commissioner Casey, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, I just think it's a level of granularity that we don't need in this definition document. I think it's something we can insert elsewhere, and I think it makes this more confusing. And I also have concerns about the fact that by specifying that it will include staff, then we potentially have raised issues of, if we're not specifically including other parties, contractors, things like that, they will be sort of assumed to be excluded from the non-interference. And whereas under the current language that we have, I think it's made pretty clear that the non-interference clause covers basically anything that falls under this body.
Thank you, Commissioner Casey. Is there, and then additional comments or questions about Commissioner Casey opinion? Commissioner Dan?
Well, my proposal to compromise on that would be to take the word staff and change it to the word employees then, if you're worried about contractors. Having watched police accountability meetings in this city for 30-something years, I think it's important for us to include this clause in here so there's no question that the staff can't tell the board what to do. I can tell you stories all night long about why a majority of the CRC quit within the first year and a half after they got created because of staff interference. So I would really recommend we put this in the document. Thank you.
I guess as a business owner, I just want to remind that contractors are not employees. They're very different definition. There's a very, for the government and in taxes and everything. Employees doesn't include contractors, just a note. Commissioner Debbie?
What about if you put non-board members? Or something like that. I don't know if that's probably not the best way to say it, but.
Okay, is there additional opinions, comments about this particular part of this sentence in order to be added to this paragraph? Commissioner Sophia.
I was just thinking, I was just thinking, I mean, the board can hire and fire the director, right? So I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm still a little shaky about this whole sentence because I just haven't had the time to think through it the way I'd like to. But that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Commissioner Faith?
I understand the sentiment, Dan, and now that I'm sitting with it, it does feel more confusing. And I also wonder if this is the right place for this in this definition. If perhaps this can be included in, is this covered elsewhere? Does it need to be in this definition? Is my question. Because I do think that it reads kind of confusing.
Thank you, Commissioner Faith, and that resignates what Commissioner Co-Chair Casey was saying at the beginning and maybe adding in another part. Commissioner Angie and then Commissioner Debbie.
Thank you. I also agree with Commissioner Faith and that this, because the board can hire and fire and the director, this seems really out of place to me, and I completely understand your sentiment, Dan, your experience. I value it very much, and I'm not discounting it at all. I'm just wondering if this is the place for this information to be, because it does seem a little confusing to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Angie. Commissioner Debbie?
And even if we don't use this sentence, we might put it someplace else. So I just want to, I think what I was trying to say was this non-interference extends to all individuals other than board members, something like that. So that we're talking about that people who aren't on the board, who are staff, contractors, whatever, that they shouldn't be interfering. So I didn't mean for the non-board member to go in the middle there.
Thank you, Commissioner Debbie. Commissioner Sherry?
Yeah, I hear what they're saying about it being confusing, but I really appreciate what Dan is trying to do here. And the way I'm looking at it, if I read it and I say the non-interference clause means that when the board makes a decision under the authority of the charter, other city officials and entities shall enact the will of the board and refrain from any attempt to thwart the board's decision. Because the board will be hiring the director, who will in turn hire other personnel, this non-interference includes the staff of the board itself. That is less confusing to me, but it still leaves in all of the language. I like that. Dan, what do you think?
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Sherry. And before sending it to Dan, I'm gonna ask about Commissioner Debbie's proposal, the one that's highlighted. Is there a strong opposition to adding what Commissioner Debbie, this sentence, to this document? And we have a strong opposition for Commissioner Dan. Okay. Commissioner Dan?
Yeah, well, I think the point of the sentence is to try to encapsulate the idea I was trying to get at. So I want to talk what Commissioner Smith was saying into this, and have this sentence follow the other one and say this non-interference clause extend to all people involved in the oversight system beyond the board members themselves.
Can you repeat it, please, for the staff to?
This non-interference clause extends to all people involved in the oversight system. I think is what Commissioner Iona was trying to get at, beyond the board members themselves, and then put that sentence at the end of the other sentence, which is what Commissioner Smith was saying. I think that's a good idea. I think that makes it less confusing. I agree with that. You just take that sentence, the first sentence, and make it the second sentence.
Thank you. I'm going to ask again, but I will pass it fast to Commissioner Sophia.
Yes, I like the way Commissioner Iona had it originally, because interference can come from anyone, whether they're involved in oversight or not. I just think that it should stay that way. Make it more general, because there's people who are not involved in the oversight that have opinions and interfere. So I like the way it was before. Thank you.
Okay, then we're not going to ask for a vote until it's more clear. What would you like to express here, because it's a little confusing right now. Staff?
Yeah, if I could just ask Commissioner Dan to repeat the second part of it, just for clarity there. Would really appreciate that, and I could get that visually displayed. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Well, if you just take the part that's still white from the original paragraph, and then take the part that you have as an added track change that's right under it, yeah, that's what I'm proposing. Those two things together. Maybe put a hard carriage return there after the at itself in the first time. Yeah, like that.
Is that clear, better for staff to track changes? Okay, then first I'm gonna ask for this part, right? Is there a strong opposition to changing from what it was to what we see here, Addie? Okay, is there a general agreement to changing from what it was? Oh, I need to check. Okay, there's two oppositions. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Commissioner Casey and Commissioner Sophia.
Yeah, I think I just agree with Commissioner Sophia's point. Adding in the oversight system seems to actually limit who is supposed to be interfering. what we want is for non-interference clause to extend to all people beyond the board members themselves. And so adding involved in the oversight system, we're actually narrowing the non-interference in a way that I don't think we intend to do.
Thank you, Co-Chair Casey. Would you have a suggestion on how to put it here? That way it doesn't get that? Okay, we're gonna.
I think what staff just did is exactly what I would suggest. I think just keeping it the way that Commissioner Debbie originally suggested it makes it clear to me.
Thank you, Commissioner Casey. Commissioner Sophia.
I'm just agreeing with Commissioner Casey. He said everything I pretty much was going to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can we highlight the part I'm gonna ask first, please? Okay, I'm gonna ask for just this specific part. Is there a strong opposition to changing from what it was as to the proposed change that how it looks right now? Okay. Is there general agreement to changing from what it was as the proposed change right now? Okay, thank you. That part is approved. Then we go to the next part. Okay. Okay. Yes, staff?
There are no other proposed changes at present. I'm happy to scroll through so folks can read it before determining if this is something you want to progress on today.
Thank you. Is there any additional comments or can we move on? Can we move on? Okay. So yes, we can move on. Thank you. For the goals of, oh yeah, staff?
Co-Chair Casey, would you like to have the commission make a decision on this one today?
Yeah, it sounds like we might be there. We can at least find out if we're there. So I think that it would be appropriate to take a vote to advance the definition of independent judgment. And then it sounds like we can maybe give people some more time to look over and propose changes to the definition of accountability.
Thank you, Co-Chair Casey. Can we move on to approve the goals of independent judgment as it is now with the changes everyone suggested and were approved? I don't see all the hands.
Commissioner Feaston has, oh, okay. I think they're just.
Yeah, they just agree. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Thank you, Yamile. Okay. Looks like we're gonna give more time for commissioners to review the accountability definition with the goals in order to discuss it. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, so we do the questions about independent judgment today, and then circle back to accountability after that, probably for Thursday.
Okay, we can go to the question is, the commission has completed the discussion on independent judgment. And now we're reviewing the values to see we have consensus to approve the independent judgment definition and goals. Is there any tweaks or comments on that definition that any of the commissioners would like to make? If not, we go past to, we ask members of the public, we will pass to public comment. And we ask members to the public to keep their comments to 2 minutes in length and keep their comments focused on the draft document that we were discussing. If members of the public would like to make those comments, please raise your hand and Zoom, and we will call you to make the comments. I don't see, no, don't see any, we don't see any hands. Then we will pass. We will now brief, we already looked the PAC values and goals as a reference on the comments. And I will ask the next question. And is there a strong opposition to approving the definition with all the changes that we make today, incorporated independent judgment, incorporated into the text? Is there general agreement around approving this definition? Good, we have approved the definition and independent judgment. Congratulations, commissioners. Okay, then we will pass to draft PAC areas of agreement and oversight staff that was referred on April 17, 2023 by subcommittee and oversight staff to the full PAC. I will first pass it to the co-chairs if they want to make any comment or explanation before we go to the discussion. Commissioner Dan?
Yeah, I think what we're going to do is set the stage a little bit here for full commission and folks who are watching along at home. So I think first we're going to look at the agenda and scope document, what we're asked to do in this phase for the staff. Once that's up on the screen, we'll just kind of, I'm not trying to read every word here, but there's section C there. It says staff of the new board. It talks about the agency director, the staff structure, and then an inspector general, police auditor, and attorneys. And then the position within the city and the budget, office location, and the organizational chart. So that was kind of our overriding marching orders from the commission. So now if we can turn to the research document on what happened in the previous phases. I pulled out most of the stuff I could find that was listed in the previous phase of that said, this is what we want the staff to do, right? They want them to be able to compel testimony, subpoena information. And then we want to make sure there's an advocate for everybody, every complainant. We want to make sure that the board will determine eligibility for complaints to be handled informally by supervisors, for instance, conduct preliminary investigations and case handling decisions, and attend hearings held by the board, among other things. So this, this is the list of stuff that, it goes back to the previous phase. These are things the commission already agreed that we'd like the staff to do. That document's available on the website and was sent to all of you if you need to refer to it as we're going through the rest of this. And the third document for setting this up, and we're not going to discuss this, and the warning here on page 1 will sort of explain why, but this is a completely rough estimate that we put together, Co-Chair Amici and I, to figure out how much it might cost to run the new civilian oversight body. And these figures are totally made on rough estimates on what other people make right now in the city on similar jobs. we made a back of the envelope calculations. And the idea, as I said before, I'm repeating myself for those who've heard this already, so that we would not build a boat in the basement, which is to say, you don't want to build this giant boat and then say, oh yeah, the door's too small to get the boat out of the basement. So make sure that we're saying, we want the board to have this, and the staff person and the board membership to get this, and this money, and then turn around and say, oh yeah, they're only guaranteed $12.3 million from the city council. How we're going to make that happen. So I put together this spreadsheet, so you can scroll to the spreadsheet now. And you know, I don't want to get into a deep discussion about it, but basically there was, you know, a rough estimate of, based on this discussions we had in the subcommittee, how many people might be needed for these various jobs, how many hours might work in a week or a year, how much money they might make, depending on the experience level they might have needed, and then putting aside money for the members of the board and making sure that they get paid for reasonable expenses, which is, you know, we'll be talking about more in the board membership. But and I'll just tell the members of the board membership subcommittee that you know, there's an estimate of 10% of the budget going to that, and that's almost exactly, it's actually a little bit higher than 10% in this estimate. So we had some great synchronicity between the two work groups. And also too, for the audience and for the board, our first meeting of these two subcommittees, board membership and oversight staff, happened together. And my understanding from the meeting we had tonight, discuss how the meeting's going to work tonight. My understanding is we're going to look at this document and the board membership document, and then we're going to vote on both of them, because there's enough overlap where I think it makes sense for you to have a big picture of everything before we vote on both of them. Anything else you want to add, Co-Chair Amici, before we head into the discussion?
Nope.
Thank you, Commissioner and Co-Chair Dan and Commissioner and Co-Chair Ajay. I just want to ask you to follow our normal discussion rules. Please be brief each time you speak, even though you can speak multiple times. Please be facilitator and remember that we use a weighted stack in our discussions. Finally, please be forward-looking in your comments. Will the co-chairs like to get the discussion started?
All right, I think we're going to just read through this for a bit. I'll start off. All right. So, agency director. Oh, I guess I should read this top part first. The Police Accountability Commission is tasked with developing the functions of the new police accountability system in Portland, including the new the new Community Police Oversight Board. As part of ensuring the Oversight Board is able to complete its duties, the commission was tasked with defining the role of the director and staff, budget, and position within the city. The Police Accountability Commission has developed the following areas of agreement on oversight staff. These agreements are not formal recommendations of the Police Accountability Commission, but will be built upon by the commission to create city code recommendations for council.
Thank you. Is there any? Oh, Commissioner Dan?
Oh, I just want to point out to the members of our subcommittee that the co-chair and I wrote this when we were preparing this document for tonight. So this wasn't approved by the full subcommittee, but we're hoping that the full commission will accept our introduction.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan and Commissioner Ajay. Is there any questions, suggestions, or edits to the introduction? Commissioner Sophia.
Yes, could we, my request is to go through this after we get through the document, to come back to this introduction and then vote on it.
Okay, you want to continue reading to the document first?
Yes, please.
Okay.
That's my request.
I guess we can definitely do it. I will pass it to Commissioner Faith first.
Just a flag for the overall document. When we have decided a name, can we go through there will be so many places where we'll replace new community board or the board or all of the things. Just flagging that for the future.
Thank you for the name. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Faith. Okay, then if is there anybody, is everybody okay, can we move on? But knowing that we're not going to go back to this part and make suggestions and review it, as suggested by Commissioner Sophia. Can we move on to continue reading the document? And then we will come back to this part. Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner, Co-Chair Ajay.
A, Agency Director. A1, Qualifications Hiring Process. A1A, the board shall hire a director who shall be appointed by and serve at the will and pleasure of the board. Should I continue reading it?
Oh, we can review this part. Thank you. Is there any suggestions, questions about this part? No? Can we move on? I see some of the commissioners are maybe still thinking about it, or we can move on. Okay, we can move on. Thank you.
A1B, wait, what is that? A1B, yeah, hiring process. A1B1, selection of the director shall be done through a community-led process, community process led by the oversight board. A1B2, the board shall select the director in accordance with the city's human resource policies and rules and any other applicable laws by the following process. A1B21, a subset of the board hiring committee, which could be made up of board leadership and or others, shall work with the director of the Bureau of Human Resources, BHR, or designee to create a job posting that comports with the necessary and desired qualifications for a director. A1B22, the hiring committee shall work with community members to assess minimum qualifications and select at least 3 candidates best qualified to interview. A1B23, the full board shall interview the candidates and the top scoring candidate will be moved forward. A1B24, at that meeting or the next appropriate meeting, the full board shall vote whether to hire the top scoring candidate. A1B25, if the top candidate is not appointed, then the hiring committee shall present the next top scoring candidate to the board for consideration and a vote. The selection process shall continue as stated until the board votes to appoint a candidate as the director. This shall include reopening the recruitment process if none of the interviewed candidates are appointed.
Thank you, Co-Chair Ajay. Is there any questions, edits, or comments for A1B1 and A1B2? Yes, staff?
Hi, yes. So the red text is just the combination. The subcommittee, when voted on it, the subcommittee approved referring this document to the full commission with this text up above as its own category, and there is a proposed change to combine it. It's effectively reorganization, and the subcommittee did vote on allowing staff to do that. So just clarifying, that's what all these little renumberings are. And it doesn't necessarily require a decision of the full PAC, but just wanting to illustrate for transparency's sake why it's in track changes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sophia?
Yes, I just had a question about A1, I don't know, B2II, I don't know that one, yeah. That's a little confusing to me. So it says the hiring committee, I guess, which is comprised of board members will work with community members to assess minimum qualifications. I don't understand how that's going to be done. Is it going to be in the selection process? How is that going to work in the community with the board? It doesn't quite. I don't see it. So let me just ask the question and just wait for it.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Commissioner Dan?
Well, there's a process right now that is used by the IPR that includes members of the community and members of the CRC. And we didn't want to get too into the weeds to define exactly how many community members should be part of the work. But that's just the idea, that it wouldn't necessarily be only board members reviewing the application. I should also point out there's a typo in A1B2 just above that line. Oh, no, never mind. There's closed parentheses. I see it. Never mind. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Commissioner Sophia?
Yeah, I appreciate your answer, but I don't know what the other board was doing. So for me, when I read it, it doesn't really jive. I mean, you're assuming that we all know what happened in some other committee. So when I read it offhand, I don't know what happened in the other committees. So it could be a little more explanatory and be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Debbie make a suggestion in the chat. Commissioner Debbie, would you like to read it?
So now I don't know the answer to this, but the way I read it is I thought maybe it meant that they would, this little group of community members and board members would screen the applications and resumes and kind of make sure that the pool that they're looking at for the next stage meets the minimum qualifications, and then pick 3 that are best qualified to interview. So kind of rank order them. But to make it clear, maybe there's a better way to say that. But that's what I think it means. But we should check with the co-chairs and the subcommittee to make sure that's what they meant.
Thank you, Commissioner Debbie. Commissioner Sophia?
Okay, so I thought the hiring committee was going to do that. So you're saying that you're going to have the community members do all this screening and assessment, or are you going to have them participate? I mean, who's going to be the say-so? And this is kind of where I'm going with it. It's not making a lot of sense about who's going to actually be making these decisions. Is it going to be the hiring committee, or is it going to be the community members? Is it going to be a combination, or what? I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding how that process is going to work. And right now it's not quite clear. It seems just a little muddy for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Commissioner Dan?
Well, I appreciate that. This language came directly from the city code that exists now. So, I think it's possible to get this clarified once the actual work is underway. But I think the words assess minimum qualifications was part of Commissioner Iona's suggestion, so I don't think that should be crossed out. And I think maybe it might help Commissioner Glenn's answer Commissioner Glenn's question if it says, and the committee shall select at least 3 candidates best qualified to interview. That way it's clear that it's the committee that's making the selection.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Commissioner Sherry?
Yeah, what if we clarified it by saying the hiring committee shall work with community members to assess minimum qualifications by screening applications and resumes, and the committee shall select at least 3 candidates best qualified to interview. That leaves all the wording in there and it clarifies it more.
Thank you, Commissioner Sherry. And the staff got all the suggestion changes? Okay. Commissioner Sophia, do you have a suggestion on how they should be written?
Yeah, I just have one little clarification. So how many community members, will be on this? I'm just trying to make it a little more specific because when you say community members, it doesn't really say who, how they're selected even to be on the board or on that hiring committee. Oh, and or others. Okay, so anyway, I see that, but how many? I don't know. When you say just community members, it just kind of that's a big group of people, and we don't really know how many will be involved. If we can just give something, I don't know, the board members, the subcommittee members probably thought through this and just didn't put it in there.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Commissioner Ajay, Co-Chair Ajay, and then Commissioner Debbie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess staff just said what I was sort of going to say, which is we want to create like a sort of loose container, but ultimately leave the decision making up to this new board, because we're just speculating at this point, right? Like this is a future that we couldn't possibly know. And so we want to leave some room for them to make decisions based on the situation in their current moment. So I don't know if we want to put specific numbers yet, just because we want to leave a little bit of flexibility for the board to have autonomy over their own decisions.
Thank you, Commissioner Ajay. And Commissioner Debbie?
Yeah, and I was going to say more or less the same thing. I think that the important thing is to make sure that the hiring committee isn't just made up of board members. I think we want to have some community in there, and they may decide that we'll want 3 board members and 2 community members, or 3 of each, or whatever, but they can figure that, let's let them figure that out. But I think the point is that it's not just board members who are doing this. We bring some community in, and they get a look at the applications and as a group, and then decide who their 3 favorites are, and then they bring them before the larger public, and and then start talking about who would be the best choice for the new director.
Thank you. Commissioner Tim?
Yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Iona's perspective there. I do think, though, that the board is going to be comprised of community members and is going to have a lot of people on it. And so I do think that it is important to be clear that the board is who will actually make decisions about this hiring process with community input. And so I do think that we should stay away from trying to put the community members that are not on the board in any type of decision-making role via what we're writing up here, because we certainly want input beyond just the board perhaps, but I don't know that we want to put out there that they're going to be in a decision-making capability. Otherwise, they would be on the board.
Thank you. Commissioner Debbie?
So I participated as a community member in the process to select new citizen review committee members. And there's a little formula in the code that I don't remember it exactly, but there's like the deputy director of the IPR, a couple or few CRC members who aren't up for renewal, or they could be retired, and then a community member or 2. I don't remember. But so what happens is that group then screens the applications and scores them. And then they pick like the top 8 or 10 or whatever it is, and then schedule interviews with them. And then a group made up of IPR staff, CRC members, and community members, all who looked at the resumes, participate in the interviews. And then it's kind of a collaborative decision-making process. But then in the case of our current system, the auditor has the final say on who gets picked, but listens carefully, of course, to what this group recommended. And then those people get, sent off to city council for confirmation or appointment, whatever, I don't know the right term. But so I think it's nice to have you know, some community in there that aren't board members who are kind of weighing in and helping in a collaborative fashion, sort of, you know, talk about what they're looking for in a director. But then, I mean, I agree with you, Commissioner Tim, that then it's the, you know, the board then can make after going through this whole community process, then can take all of that into account. And then the hiring committee can say, okay, this is the person we think we should hire. So yeah, I'm kind of a mixed bag here, but I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. Thank you. And you know what? I forgot, it was my fault. We have this rule about every area to have 5 minutes, and it's getting close to, I mean, we're already past the 5 minutes, but it's getting close to go to the next items on the agenda. I need to ask if we can leave this to continue discussing on next Thursday, or we can, if you think that with all the comments, we can ask the questions to approve the changes and move on. But if there are more comments to this one, or we can review later too. Sure. Can I ask the question about approving this part? Yes. Okay. I'm gonna ask the question and then see how it goes. Okay. And staff, this is the whole part. Yes. Is there a strong opposition to making all the changes in A1, B2 second? Is there a strong opposition to changing? Is there a general agreement to changing from what it was to the suggestions, to the new suggestions? Thank you. Can we move on? Okay, what we have to do is we will move on. We will stop there and continue reviewing this document on Thursday, because now it's time for public comment, and we will pass to public comment, and I will remind members of the public to keep their comments to 2 minutes in length, and to keep their comments focused on, but it can be the draft document or any item on the PAC. You can raise your hand in Zoom and you will be called. Is there members of the public that would like to make any comment? I don't see anyone. Oh, I have one. Yeah, Mr. Delgado, please. Welcome. Thank you for being here and thank you for participating. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yume Delgado, he, him. I work on the current Citizen Review Committee. Just want to thank you for all of your hard work on this phase of work and congratulate you as you reach the home stretch, at least for this section. Just two small things that jumped out at me listening to you all tonight. One, looking at Commissioner Dan's sort of worksheet for the budget, I noticed that it looks like we only have $31,000 set aside for facility purchase or rental. So I think if you end up doing any further budget work, you may want to keep that in mind. Also, just listening to this section on membership, or I should say on the hiring of a director for the new oversight body, I think there is a distinction to be made, and I raised this in the Q&A, between community involvement in selecting volunteers to the city, which are not subject to any sort of like financial consideration, and a hiring decision, right, which is, you know, presumably going to involve a more in-depth job application and perhaps more privileged information. This actually came up recently because, as some of you may know, someone is requesting all of the contact information for everyone who applied for the PAC. And my understanding from talking with the city attorney is that all of you will be protected because that's part of your employee record, but everyone else is having their information disseminated. So I think when you're talking about making a employment decision, you may want to consider how much you are going to push that burden in terms of looking at job applications onto community members who are not subject to the same NDA or confidentiality requirements that future board members will be. So that's my 2 cents on that front. I do think community input is useful and important, especially for people who don't have the time to serve in a full-time capacity the way the future board members will. But I think that could be directed more towards the hiring panels and some of those public conversations, as opposed to maybe having to look at actual human resources documents. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delegado. We appreciate your comments. Is there any additional comments from the public? No? Then we will pass. Thank you very much for participating. We will pass to next steps. And the first item and next steps is member curiosities. And the next steps is member curiosities is a brief period of time of today's agenda where members of the commission can bring items to discuss. There may be questions or follow-ups or an article they haven't read they'd like to share. We're not going to vote on anything during this time. We want to give a space to multiple members to share. So please take 1 minute per person at most during this time. Is there any questions the members of the PAC or in the process they'd like to be answered? Commissioner Dunn?
Well, it's not a question. I don't think I put this on our email that the city council is going to be voting on the policy around body cameras, which we have sort of broad policies that we envisioned in one of our earlier documents on Wednesday afternoon. There's a 2 o'clock time certain, and then the body camera policy comes up after that. So it could start anytime between 2:30, 3:30, 4 o'clock. We don't know. You may have seen in the newspaper that basically the Police Association and the Police Commanding Officers Association agreed to officers not looking at the footage before they make a statement about what happened in a deadly force and a serious use of force case. So if you, I'll put in a chat the link to the city council agenda item so other commissioners can take a look at that. It's available for everybody in the community to sign up and talk if they want to.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunn. Since that anything else? No, we will pass it to staff for the transition plan and broader system. Staff?
Thank you. So at the last full commission meeting, we looked at a proposed work plan for the next phase of work. And there is a particular part of this process which is relevant to today. This is one of several phases of work transition tasks that the commission needs to do in order to get prepared for the next phase. We're doing it now so that there isn't a lost window of time between the end of this phase and the start of the next one. So we won't go through all this again, but just to sort of show the slides that we went through last time, there's what the agenda and scope document says that the next phase of work, the transition plan and broader system phase, needs to discuss. There is what the outcome documents that the commission has agreed to do in the next phase are. And then there was a proposed flow chart of the work that of the phase of works flowchart. So what this would entail is having a subcommittee that develops the transition plan and a subcommittee that develops the portion that we're calling broader system, which has to do with the board relationship with other entities and changes to other entities as part of board implementation. But for short, broader system, and as the same structure as is currently in place for this phase 4, and which was used in phase 3. More frequent meetings of the subcommittees on the whole and fewer of the full commission, 1 to 2 a month on average. Each subcommittee having one outcome document, briefing and briefings and testifiers at the subcommittees or at the full PAC. And then name revisions would be done at the full commission level, the name and other details. So that did include a proposal from co-chairs to have a the two subcommittees that were discussed, one on transition plan and one on broader system, which is the question that is before you today. There is a potential agreements document which was circulated, which basically says what are on these slides, but just wanted to kind of ask the commission if there was a agreement to structuring the next phase of work in this way in a moment. But first, are there any questions on that and this structure and sort of timeline and all of that? As you can see, it's designed to go through for a little over 2 months here, probably ending at the end of June. Okay. In that case, I guess the question to be asked would be, is there any strong opposition to the idea, to the proposal to create a subcommittee on transition plan and a subcommittee on broader system for the transition plan and broader system phase of work? Is there a general agreement to creating those two subcommittees for the next phase of work? Great, thank you so much. So that's one very notable phase of work transition task done. In the next meeting, one of the next two meetings of the full commission will discuss the full commission co-chairs. And so you'll get an email asking if to consider that for the next phase. Additionally, there'll be a need for 2 co-chairs each for these 2 subcommittees that you've just created. And then there'll be a follow-up with which subcommittee you may want to join for the next phase of work. So all of that is coming your way and will be happening in the next few meetings. There are full commission meetings scheduled this coming Thursday. That's April 27th, as well as next Monday, May 1st. If needed, there'll be another one on Thursday, May 4th, just as a reference there. And then the last thing I wanted to mention before passing it back over to Facilitator Victoria is that there were no changes proposed to the documents that were under review for today. So as some of you know, there is a process at the end of each phase of work to offer a designated time to propose changes to the values and goals, bylaws, internal processes, et cetera. The commission already looked at a proposed change to agenda and scope and approved that on March 30th. There were no proposed changes received in advance for bylaws or internal processes. So next meeting will take any proposed changes to values and goals or to the community engagement framework, as well as start the process of co-chair selection for the next meeting and for the next phase, sorry. Any questions on any of that? Okay. Please do take a look and read over not only the documents that we just started on today, the oversight staff areas of agreement, but also the areas of agreement on board membership, which were referred to the full commission last week. And we'll be talking about both of those starting on Thursday. Pass it back over to Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Now we're gonna go to the garden plot recap. And this is the time for facilitators, co-chair, and staff to summarize any items already brought up today which didn't fit into today's agenda. We'll recap those items here and use them in developing future agendas. We won't be using this time to add new items not previously mentioned or to discuss any items, but we will use this list to develop future agendas so these items can be addressed. And I will ask Facilitator Ayomide if she has something in the garden plot.
I do not.
Thank you. Thank you. Co-chairs. Chairs Casey.
Nothing from me, sorry.
That's okay, thank you. Staff?
There's something that Commissioner Faith mentioned about after the name is determined in the next phase of work, circling back to old documents and potentially updating those. And that was the only thing that I wrote down. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then as a reminder, you can now submit advanced public comments to the Police Accountability Commission via web form, voicemail, or postal mail. I want to thank you, all the members who, we have, I think we have to go now because, yeah. Commissioner Obi.
Hey, sorry, just a quick point about being forward looking. One of the arguments that came up about community involvement and like board membership, that will also pertain to the next document as well. So just something like if we have a similar mindset about how we feel about that, just kind of continuing on as we, after we finish oversight staff, move to board membership, kind of hopefully taking the same idea so it makes it quicker. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Commissioner Obi. Commissioner Dan?
Yeah, and related to that comment, Mr. Delegato in the Q&A put some points that he also made in his verbal comments about the confidentiality of applications, and I think we can find out about how that works with current hiring, and whether it's for appointment for volunteers or for hiring actual people who get paid, because I'm sure that there are community members involved in those processes. So I just want to make sure that's on the list too.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Okay, then now I will pass to adjourn the meeting. Thank you to all the members who attended today's meeting and for your contributions today. Thank you also to the interpreters. Finally, thank you to all the members of the community for attending and contributing with your thoughts and questions. If you're not already signed up for email updates, please also sign up to receive updates from the PAC. It is now 9:01 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.